Welcome to The Art of Charm. I'm Jordan Harbinger. The Art of Charm brings together the best coaches in the industry to teach you guys how to get and keep the girl, as well as put your best foot forward in both social and business situations. Imagine having a mix of experienced mentors teaching you their expertise, packing decades of research, testing, and tough lessons into a concise curriculum. We've created one of the premier men's lifestyle programs available anywhere, and it's free. This is the show we wish we had a decade ago. This show is about you, and we're here to help you become the best man you can be in every area of your life. Make sure to stay up to date with everything going on here and get some killer free ebooks as well as drills and exercises that'll help you become more charismatic and confident by signing up for the newsletter at theartofcharm.com. If you're listening to this but you're not subscribed in iTunes, then that needs to change. Getting our shows delivered free to your phone or computer is the best way to make sure you don't miss anything. You can do that by going to iTunes and searching for the Art of Charm podcast, or by going to itunes.com/The Art of Charm and clicking subscribe. That's it. If you're new to the show but you want to know more about what we teach here at The Art of Charm, listen to the Toolbox at theartofcharmpodcast.com/toolbox. That's where you'll get the fundamentals of dating and attraction, such as body language, eye contact, vocal tonality, all that stuff that's more important than you might think. We've got our boot camps running every single month here in Hollywood, California. Details at theartofcharm.com. I'm looking forward to meeting all of you in LA in 2014. Today we've got a great guest, Ethel K of MarriedManSexLife.com. We're going to talk about why marriage therapy has failed couples and will continue to do so, why focusing on better communication doesn't work, what alpha male and beta male really mean in the context of your relationship, and why you are not alpha nor beta, actually, and the roles that oxytocin, dopamine, and testosterone play in your relationship, as well as what it means when a woman says, I love you, but I'm not in love with you. We also talk about why it's your job to lead always and why this is important, what Newton's laws of motion have to do with your sex life, and how to consistently create attraction between you and your wife or girlfriend, and why this is crucial to relationship longevity and survival. Enjoy this interview with Ethel K and guest host Nick Pell of The Art of Charm.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
And the reason for the guest host is, one, sometimes it gets lonely here in studio, and two, it's always good to have somebody who maybe has a little bit more of their head wrapped around a certain subject matter as well as the guest. And Nick is married and uses a lot of Ethel's stuff in his marriage to keep things on the straight and narrow. And Ethel, I'll let you introduce yourself. You have a really diverse educational and professional background. You've got sociology, religious stuff in there, nursing stuff, behavioral health. You've got a million books on relationships, sexuality, self-help, and of course, like some of what we teach here at The Art of Charm. And you've got a coaching practice for married dudes. What do you want us to focus on? I mean, you got to make up your mind here, man.
It's a pleasure to be on the show. The big thing that I do that I'm really, really interested in is tying together all the diverse branches of knowledge to find out what the core things are that we can just go out and apply. And I'm really, really into like how different things apply. So everything just kind of merges for me into one giant ball of knowledge. And the thing that really sort of interests me in the whole thing of marriage and relationships is about 5-6 years ago, I really started digging into this, and I was on a number of marriage forums, reading around the backgrounds of sexuality and all the sort of pickup artist and game sort of stuff. And I started realizing that the guys that were on these marriage forums, I could start solving a lot of their problems by applying the dating market sort of stuff to their marriages. Because so many of them they just become their boring dad, as opposed to the guy that had originally attracted his wife. They were some sort of cool guy that started out, and then 3 years goes by and they're sort of working in a cubicle. They give up the motorbike. They bought a minivan. They're surrounded by diapers, and all the stuff that originally attracted him to her, he's given away.
And we see that on the other side of the coin too, but we're going to focus on the guys here because there's a million Cosmo articles that say, you know, you were once a woman and you were once his girlfriend. It's time to get that back. Meanwhile, us guys were like getting continually either henpecked and or just doing it to ourselves and, you know, pounding the nails into the coffin that was our bedroom at one point in time.
Well, one of the points I think he makes that's really worth talking about is that a lot of the counseling that exists for couples is very female-centric, becomes putting yourself in this very supplicative posture where you're trying to ameliorate and quote-unquote communicate better, which generally just means, you know, hanging your head down and giving your wife whatever she wants. But kind of one of the core parts of this is that just giving your wife everything that she wants is probably the absolute worst thing that you could do.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? Because it's like, I communicate better. Meanwhile, she's getting really good at communicating how much of a pussy you've been like the last 5 to 10 years of the marriage, and why that's failing.
And that is the trouble with most of the solutions that we're offered in terms of fixing marriages and long-term relationships. It's all based on better communication. And that's why guys hate going to marriage counselors or therapists or whatever, because they feel like they've already lost the argument at home. Now they don't want to go lose the argument again for $200 an hour. They detest it. That's why guys are so avoidant of actually going to these things. And if the issue is a lack of attraction, the therapist or counselor is not even necessarily going to even pick that that's the issue. They just hear the wife with the complaints, and then they try and address them. So he's not listening, or maybe he's not doing the dishes or whatever, and they focus on these little things instead of what is the issue, which is the attraction. And all they do is end up communicating better about the lack of attraction. She just finds more reasons to dislike him. Easily just goes backwards with the relationship. So if all the marriage help that we have out there worked, we would all have these wonderful marriages.
Essentially, you can't act nice your way to a better marriage, right? You can't just fake your way through it either. So on one side, you can't just holistically communicate and sort of woo-woo your way to a better marriage, but you also can't come up with some clever tricks like pickup artist guys use to get girls, because that stuff's just going to fade as well. You basically run out of runway. So your teachings here goes a little something like create structural attraction that works consistently in the background. And I love that. That works in any relationship, married or not, and it works in your life, married or not, and it works if you're the boss at work, right? Creating something that works because of who you are and what you're being is going to work much better than, all right, I've got this really cool thing I read on the internet, let me put it into play and magically fix my marriage that's been screwed up for a decade.
Yeah, exactly. All the pickup artisty tricks worked really well once, and then fairly well the second time. And by the time you've tried something for the third time with your wife, she's looking at you like you're just nuts.
Right.
I've seen this before. I've heard this before. So you have to be really, really consistent in terms of what you do. If you're trying to fake it, you'll be found out, and nothing kills your attraction faster than thinking you're trying to fake it. So yeah, it has to be really, really consistent and structural.
One thing that I think might be worth taking a moment to talk about is what you mean by structural attraction and how men create that. Because I feel like I have a sense of what it is, as does my wife. We both read your blog, but guys who are not as familiar with it probably need it explained to them.
Well, what I mean by structural attraction is that it's not a particular move, or it's not something you can do in necessarily 5 minutes, but it's something that has created some real kind of substance. So if you're in really, really, really good shape, it's not something you can turn on for 5 minutes. It takes hours in the gym. It takes you a really, really good diet, eating right, and being really, really health conscious about what you do. But when you're in really, really good shape, that is just attractive all the time, just running in the background endlessly. And you don't have to really consciously think about, I'll act like I'm physically in great shape. You just are. You wake up out of bed in the morning and you look good. Once you have that, it's always attractive. It's the same thing with having some kind of decent career. If you have a good solid job, you're making a good performance at it, you're going to work dressing right, that's just constantly attractive. But it's not something you can turn on. It's not like you can act like you have some kind of high-powered job in front of your wife when she knows you don't.
Honey, can I borrow $20?
It's not like you're going into a bar and pretending you're a doctor. When you're married,
yeah.
When you're married, you actually have to be a doctor, to have that same sort of pull. That's what I mean by structural attraction. It's there, it's consistent, and it's really just by you accumulating this basically positive stuff in your life. It can't be taken away from you.
It's more about who you're being than what you're trying to portray at that point. And that falls in line really well with the art of charm, especially with the physical fitness thing. We constantly discuss that the mind follows the body and the body follows the mind. So if you're in good shape, you don't have to work on faking charismatic or alpha dog body stance, because you're working out and you're in shape, and that's sort of your swag is just kind of happening automatically. And as far as the career stuff is concerned, you have that going as well, because when you're feeling really good and you come home from a long day at work and you just crushed it in the office and the boss is like, man, you're irreplaceable, this project was kick-ass, you don't have to walk around throwing your weight around or overcompensating, which is a trait of insecure guys, which is very unattractive, because you're crushing it and that's in place.
Exactly. And it actually, in that sense, it becomes very, very easy to keep your wife happy when you're doing those sort of things. I mean, if you're in good shape with a good job, you're just 3/4 of the way there.
That makes sense.
Yep.
I think another thing that probably works in its favor, and tell me what you think about this, it seems like if you have multiple things kind of in place and set up correctly, then if, say, you lose your job, but you're still in good shape and you're still treating your wife in the right way, and you're still working on other things, it's not like, what a loser. It's like everything else is kind of, the structure can support itself on 3 legs out of 4 if need be for at least a short time.
Everything goes together in a set too. If you're in shape, it's easy to have a good job. It's easy to keep the wife's attraction going. It's easy to keep your family going. All these things all work synergistically together. And it works the other way too. It's nothing worse than having a crappy marriage to put your job performance down or to make you want to give up on working out. These things all come together. So working on any one of them is to your benefit. You almost don't even need to choose which one you start on. Just anything is better than nothing if you're going to improve yourself.
We talked a lot about alpha and beta stuff before the show, and I see it in some of your work as well. And I kind of want to clear that up because we're not necessarily talking about like the Jersey Shore fist pumper, spray tan, like steroid jockey when we talk about alpha versus beta. I'll let you explain it because this is something you write a lot about in a way that's different from the way most people think about it.
It is different. And I think this is one of the most critical insights and points I think that I have. Most people tend to think of the whole alpha and beta as a continuum. Like at one end, there is the alphas who are the strong, powerful, tall, dynamic, charismatic. And at the other end is the beta guys who are caring, kind, sharing, too soft, too nice, too weak. And the alpha guys just steamroll the beta guys. I really, really see these as two completely different traits. These are two different things. And I really got put onto this when I started reading over the work of Dr. Helen Fisher, where she split what she called the 3 love systems up into these 3 things, which are all driven by hormones and neurotransmitters. One of these 3 love systems is very, very easy in that it's the testosterone-based one. That's the one that just creates baseline sexual interest and desire. So that's just the one that makes you feel attracted and sexually interested in women in general. And that one pretty much aligns very closely to your physical fitness to have that love system working. The second one is the oxytocin-based one, which is all about that intimacy, companionship, that love, trust, intimacy, the positive feelings. And that's the same between like a husband and wife, as between, a father and their kids, or the kids for the parents. Basically anyone that's a really kind of good friend to you that you feel like you trust and care about, you're having some oxytocin in there. And those are the ones that really align to the beta traits. So I pretty much say what's beta is responding to oxytocin.
I see where this is going, and it seems like a common mistake, and you also write about this as well, is a lot of guys who are first getting into dating stuff, they're like, oh, that's my problem, I'm beta, and then they go like full bore alpha dog, whatever, she's gonna be late, then fuck her, and they like don't show up, and then it's like, whatever, I run my reality, and you get all this weird pickup artist stuff, and the guy just ends up being a total a-hole, and it doesn't make sense to them.
Well, yes and no. It works really, really well.
Right, at first, yeah, of course. And then implosion.
The first 3 weeks, he's excited, like, oh my God, he's finally doing something. He's finally fun to be with. He's finally pulling my hair and spanking my ass like I've been asking to, for the last 3 years. But yeah, they just go over the top. They kill all the beta stuff. So they kill all that intimacy, the companion love, the friendship element of the relationship. And after a couple of months, she's sick of it. This is why you see women bouncing between the bad boys and the nice guys. It's almost like they get a hit of alpha from the bad boy and then they don't get any beta, so they paying back to the guy friend. Get to cry on his shoulder, get a hug and a cuddle, and then 3 weeks later, the cycle repeats.
And that can be very unhealthy, especially if the guy doesn't understand why too much of that good thing is now annihilating his marriage.
Well, it's not even so much the too much of a good thing. There's a point where you have to have a balance. In a sense, it's not possible to be too caring. It backfires if you don't have any alpha to justify it and to make it seem worthwhile.
Alpha's on the other side of the equation, right?
Not so much on the other side of the equation, it's that separate trait. What I'm calling the alpha is anything that triggers is neurotransmitter dopamine, which is basically anything in your life that's fun, exciting, high energy stimulation, anything that you just go, wow, that was just awesome. You're getting some sort of hit of dopamine. And this is behind a lot of addictions. So anyone that is like in the casinos pulling on their one-armed bandits, every time they're pulling, they're getting that little hit of dopamine. Just keep pulling, keep pulling. It's the same thing you're going to get when you like jump out of a plane and go skydiving or ride go-karts. So engaging stimulation is that same thing that drives romantic attraction, the whole infatuation thing. The alpha traits are all dopamine related. The beta traits are all oxytocin related. So these are two separate things. And the third one being testosterone, which is pretty much just physical. As a guy, you're trying to at least have some kind of balance of these in your relationship because you can get that initial attraction. This is how you get the first date, then the girl's number, whatever, is going to be the alpha stuff because you're fun, exciting, appealing, and she gets that little hit of dopamine to want to seek you out. But at some point, you have to have the beta stuff with a little oxytocin hit to make you feel comfortable being in a relationship with you. So they're two separate traits, but really, if you don't have the alpha in place, the beta doesn't count. I mean, if you're some crazy hot guy, a lot of alpha, and so you're giving a girl flowers or whatever, that's very, very beta. If you're a crazy hot guy, she's going to like it. If you're not, you end up sort of doing the orbiting thing and, here, I really like you, brought you these flowers or whatever. You can give her the same flowers and she's going to go, oh my God, this creepy guy gave me flowers.
Right. It becomes a needy, value-seeking behavior. And so that's sort of reaching up. Whereas the alpha guy's like, you know what? I've been pretty harsh lately. And he sort of reaches down and gives her the same flowers. And she's like, oh, he's accessible. He's opening up to me. Whereas the other guy, right, being needy, it's like, ugh, this guy's just constantly pouring himself out to me. He's so gross. Get him away from me. All right, let's take a quick break. Guys, some people think the Art of Charm boot camps are just about picking up girls. And honestly, there's a lot of that. But 1 week with us, and you'll be rocking out in that department, of course, I promise. But as a guy, I know how important it is to be awesome. And not just awesome with girls. Awesome at work, awesome at home, awesome with your friends. Guys need to be awesome everywhere. And that's why we call our company the Art of Charm. It's that special something that gets you results wherever you go. And trust me, the results are real. Every day I get new emails from the guys who decided to take our boot camp, and what I read is amazing. Just weeks after graduating, they land a promotion, they form a new wolf pack, and they have a new life, and it is not an accident. Find out why at theartofcharm.com. And in the meantime, let's get back to the show.
It's almost like the beta is an emotional side, but the alpha gives it an anchor so that it's not just sort of being carried away by her whims or the circumstances of the next 90 seconds or whatever. The alpha gives it this kind of anchor so that you're not getting carried away. Whereas flip it, what the beta gives to the alpha side is that it helps to create some sort of intimacy, but also of comfort, a feeling of emotional safety because you know that he is looking out for you emotionally, but also that with the alpha aspect, making it so that it's an anchored emotional caring. It's not just blown away with whatever she's tripping out about that day or gone in a day's time.
A lot of the alpha stuff really ties into displaying high value. When you start displaying high value really, really consistently.
Being high value is the best way to do that, not just like faking it.
It is much, much easier to display high value when you actually have high value.
Yes.
You don't need to think about it so much. But there's still the things of like how you interact with your on a day-to-day basis. I mean, if you can have enormous value, and I see this a lot with guys too. They can have enormous value. They can go to work and be the superstar. And then they come home, they just shock it from them, and they become the butler. And I've seen this a lot. Really high-powered guys in the business would just come home and they just fold. I've seen it same with military guys too, which is a really, really alpha profession, and then come home and just roll over in front of you. If you're a 9 and she's an 8, and then you come home and you just fold, you act like a 6 or a 7, she thinks she's in charge and she's running the show, and slowly she loses attraction. So there's still things you can do on a day-to-day basis that can kill your display of value, but it's certainly easier to display high value when you actually have it. But if you're displaying high value strong enough and long enough, she can get that sense that you're trumping her a little bit. You're outdoing her, which is why the beta stuff is important in terms of you showing that you have some sort of emotional commitment. that you're not just going to dump her or cheat or leave or treat her badly, that you actually care about her and she's safe in the relationship. She can kind of relax in this hand. Can be attracted, but she can kind of be relaxed about letting herself go and be into you. Because you don't want to be a woman who is really, really into a guy who then dumps her and moves on to the next one. So that's why they really, really look for this stuff. In fact, women can even test for it. The same way women can fitness test a guy or shit test a guy looking to see if he has alpha. Does this guy have any value? Is he going to stand up to me? The same way women can test for that. They can also test for, are you committed? They're looking for the beta. Does this guy care about me at all? The tough thing is that these fitness tests and these loyalty tests, they can look kind of the same, which is often what you find when the guys first learn all this stuff. They go, oh my God, I've been beta for so long. She's been fitness testing me. I've been failing all these tests. I got to stop acting like the butler. I got to stand up to her, be a man, be myself, find what I want to do and go do it. That be more alpha, and it works. And then 2 months, 3 months later, he looks at her complaining about something. He goes, she's fitness testing. And he bumps back on it. And he acts more alpha. He acts tougher, stronger, taller, bigger, louder. And no way. I'll do this. Go off you go.
Nick does that. Depends on what it is, of course. Sometimes it's valid, but other times you've kind of barked back. I've been there for some of that.
When she complains, I usually just kind of go like, yeah, whatever. I mean, what do you want me to do about it?
Sometimes it's valid stuff, and I know you address that stuff because we've talked about it. But other times it's like, okay. And then it's like, ... And she's like, all right, guess that's where that's going to stand.
But if it's valid, that's when you got to attend to it.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is you're not there when I'm being the world's biggest pussy with my wife.
Sure.
But
Jenny's my girlfriend. We've talked about this too, because like he'll open the car door for her and like help her with her coat. But then she's like, I don't really like this. And he's like, so what? It's kind of funny.
But you have to read it right.
One of the things I really like about your writing in the world of game, which I'm just going to call it for the sake of simplicity, there's a tendency to sort of fall back on these one size fits all type of solutions that, you're being tested, so you do this. And what I think that you bring to it is some nuance. I think the alpha beta as not being a continuum, as being totally separate traits is good. I think that the captain first mate model is excellent. You were talking about, because I thought the other day, I was talking to my wife and she said, I'm not testing you, and I thought, yeah, the hell you're not. There's no better way to set up a test than to say, I'm not testing you, but by the way, here's the test. You don't study for a history test the night before you take a chemistry test. If you're being asked a chemistry question, the Battle of Valley Forge is not the right answer.
It's funny you should bring that up because it seems like also she meant what she said when she said, I'm not testing you. I don't think it's a conscious level thing.
No, of course it's not, but that doesn't make it any less of a test.
Exactly. I agree with that, but it's definitely a subconscious thing. So that's why a lot of women go, I don't play those kind of games with my man. And it's like, you're just so unaware that this happens subconscious level. Because Jenny does this all the time, and I'll be like, she's testing me. And then one time I said something like that out loud, and she was like, no, what are you talking about? You think I'm doing this on purpose? And
the worst thing you can say is
I didn't say it in the moment.
Tell them that they're testing you.
No, don't do it in the moment. But afterwards, she's like, I don't do that. I'm like, you do. It's totally normal. I mean, it's 100% normal. Going back to sort of the dopamine, oxytocin thing, a lot of marriages or relationships in general will fall apart because you get that I love you, but I'm not in love with you, which is I oxytocin you, but I don't dopamine you, right? There's too much of the beta, not enough of the alpha. Or maybe the opposite balance is true, but unlikely. By the time you get to marriage, it's usually not that way around.
Oh, and by the way, thank you for being the first person alive to accurately explain what the fuck that means when people say that. Because you hear this all the time. But you've gotten to our age, you've heard this however many times, or friends hearing it, or whatever. Like, what does this even mean? And you just capture it so well. This is exactly what it means. You've got a beta attachment, but there's no alpha excitement.
When women say, I love you, but I'm not in love with you, you should hear that and react to that the same way when you hear a rattlesnake rattle, because it means the situation is really, really, really bad.
I mean, it's really like almost over. May in most cases be over. When
it's almost over, or something really, really bad is going to happen to your relationship, because by the time she's saying this, it's not a vague thing. It's not a passing thought in her head. It's now something that she really, really, truly sees and understands, and it's become become conscious, like, I love him, but I'm just not into him at all. And it usually means that there's somebody else that has entered into the picture that she is feeling attraction for.
Right.
If anyone out there is listening and is hearing the I love you, but I'm not in love with you thing, you've got to pay attention to that, because you have to find a way to increase your alpha, like, right now, because the situation is fairly bad.
A core alpha trait is knowing that it's your responsibility and accepting that it's your responsibility to lead the relationship in the first place. And the lack of that leadership is what leads to I love you, but I'm not in love with you in the first place.
Yeah, pretty much. And often guys are going to think that they're doing the right thing. This is what's so frustrating to so many men. It's like, okay, I went to college, I got a good job, I'm going to work, I'm doing stuff for the kids, I'm helping out around the house, we're going away on vacation together, I'm visiting her mother, doing all these good things.
Yay, the in-laws.
Yeah, I mean, they literally tick off the good guy boxes, and then they get hit with, I love you, but I'm not with you. Because they've given away everything that was truly attractive.
The moral of the story is never go visit your in-laws.
Mine are in England, so
you got off the hook.
It's easy enough to. I love my in-laws. If this ends up in the show, I should.
So beta, Nick. Essentially, if the relationship fails, you're going to be held more accountable for the failure than she is because you didn't lead. You're like, I'm not the captain of the ship, but you are. Meanwhile, it's up against the rocks and you're just staring at her like, take the wheel.
This is something a lot of guys don't get, that they are held responsible when the relationship fails. I mean, whether that's right or wrong, it is what it is. This is just the way everyone reacts.
You need to lead whether you like it or not. Like, you're in charge. You can't delegate the role even if you want to.
Exactly. Even the relationships where the woman is a judge, or at least seems to be, she's usually pissed off. Why am I doing all this stuff? Why do I have to be the one in charge? Why do I have to do this, that, and the other? And it's like, why isn't he stepping up? They hate it. They can detest their husband for not being strong enough to stand up to them or, create some sort of direction in the relationship. Most women do not want to be in charge of the relationship. They want the guy to be, and they want to be able to be attracted, feel like they're taken care of. They want to feel heard, but they don't want to necessarily be the one that has the responsibility. In a sense, it's like commercial aviation. There's a captain and there's a first officer. Most women want to be the first officer. They want to have a leadership position. They want to have some sense of direction, input, responsibility. But they want somebody else to be able to carry the can if everything goes down in flames.
And what was interesting that I was doing in the pre-reading before here that you talk about, I mean, I'm totally guilty of, what do you want for dinner tonight? Well, I don't give a shit. Just pick something and make it. And I will never do that again, because it's even those little decisions. What do you want for dinner tonight? I want this, that add up over time to demonstrate the type of leadership that you're talking about. She just wants some kind of answer. It doesn't matter what it is. Just some answer.
In most relationships, there's not that many truly big decisions. It's a bunch of little ones. I mean, by big decisions, it's like, okay, what is someone's career going to be? Am I going to take the job offer in Chicago and move our family there? Those are big decisions that require a lot of talking about and figuring out. But most of the decisions you make are quite small and semi-trivial. But unless you pay attention to them, you can miss them. I mean, women softball decisions at you all the time. No, you just have to make a choice.
So let's get into some practical stuff. I mean, you don't just talk about these concepts abstractly. I mean, we've got a lot of practical things we can apply, and you've got something like relationship momentum and trying to create this momentum in a 1 to 100 scale of happiness, which is great. And you've got like a spreadsheet here where you can get these -1 events or some +1 events without turning your relationship into some sort of weird game entirely or like a battle for control. I mean, that's a really useful tool in my opinion. And have a link in the show notes where guys can get more information about this.
All right. So if you just want to think of the relationship happiness on a scale from 1 to 100, by this I mean pretty much how she feels about the relationship. Because most guys are either feeling like it's pretty good up on the 100% level or terrible down on the 0% level. Most of the time, women almost can like pick out, like, I'm 43% happy with him right now. And then you do something that she likes and you move up to 44% happy. Something bad or not she didn't like and you float down to 41% happy. So that's pretty much what I mean by the 1 to 100 scale, is how she is feeling about this relationship. Because most women really sort of almost micromanage how they feel from moment to moment, day to day, where guys tend to be either happy or unhappy. And by relationship momentum, I actually picked this up from a stockbroker friend of mine. And one of his big things was he was more worried by good stocks starting to drift down than he was by really crappy stocks starting to move up. Because once they start heading in a direction, they keep going in that direction unless something happens. For me, the light bulb moment, because you can have these really, really good relationships, and then something critical happens, and then the relationship starts tracking downwards. Or you can have a really bad relationship, and where something good happens, and it starts picking up.
So basically, Newton's laws of motion affect your sex life. Is that what we're going with here?
Pretty much. And it's actually interesting how often relationships are actually affected by things like the stock market. I know plenty of guys who are having a really crappy time in 2012, 2013, and now 2014, and it all started going bad in 2008. That was when the stock market made big changes. A lot of people got downsized, laid off, lost their jobs. They had a good relationship in 2008, and then they've had this really negative event, and then it slowly starts tracking downwards from the point. It really does matter, especially in a marriage, because you're in this long, long game. You can have a decade of a really, really good relationship, some sort of major critical incident, and then your relationship can slowly whittle away to something bad. But you can also turn it around too. So I'm really, really worried by good relationships getting bad as opposed to bad relationships getting better, because it keeps heading in that same direction. So the question is, say we have a 1 to 100 scale, how do we get points? We guys, we want to score points.
Right, yeah, exactly.
And rack it up. And I mean, as soon as you realize, holy crap, she said, I love you, but I'm not in love with you. And you're realizing, oh dear God, my relationship is down around 12%. I got to fix this. I got to tune this around. So the question is, how do you do that? The first, if nothing else, the most important thing is you have to start whining, pouting, complaining, being passive aggressive, moping around, being grumpy, angry. Your relationship's in a bad place, because this all tracks back to you're the captain. You were responsible for this. So when you are complaining about the state of your relationship, she sees that as just a huge display of weakness, a lack of leadership, and a lack of interest in running your own life. So you get a big old -1 to your score through all this complaining, pouting, crying, being upset, hurt feelings, all this sort of stuff. So you really have to get that under control pretty quickly, because you can do a whole bunch of good stuff, get yourself a +1 here and there, but if you keep complaining and whining, it's just like every day you get yourself another -1.
You can do a lot of damage by being a little bitch. And guys know I don't use that term a lot. That's kind of what we're talking about here, is like, instead of taking the bull by the horns and going after what you want and going, listen, there's something wrong here, we need to fix it. You're like, fine, I'm just going to be in my man cave with my stupid comic books or whatever. And the girl's like, everything's falling apart around us, and he's being a little wimp about it. This sucks.
There is often, though, the sense where the guy is being screwed. Like I say, if he can check off all those boxes of all the beta stuff that he's done, I help run the house, I have a good job, I clean out your car, I take us on vacations, I do all this good stuff, and I'm having this crappy response. There's a sense where the guy feels entitled that he's put into this relationship. He should be getting back.
Right. He's got like a nice guy syndrome inside the relationship almost at that point.
Yeah. Well, in a sense, though, it's kind of justified. If you've done a whole bunch of nice stuff for someone, you kind of expect something back. But unfortunately, though, all that nice stuff was not attracting here.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. But in the meantime, guys, listen, it's Jordan here from The Art of Charm. You've heard me talk a lot about taking you to the next level in life at work and in your relationships. And you've also thought to yourself, yeah, I want to up my game. I want to become a better man. I want to be a better hustler. I want to be a better person. And my guess is that you've been thinking about it for a really long time. Am I right? So I want to tell you this. Stop thinking. Your chance is now. Do you really need more time, more information, more plans for the future? Or do you want to become that guy today? Because the truth is this. You can be the guy who sits around all day and thinks about becoming better, or you can be the guy who decides that today is the day you're going to become awesome. And I want that for you. Why? Because you are awesome. You just don't know it yet. So join me and thousands of other guys who've taken action in their lives at theartofcharm.com. Now let's get back to it. I feel like I just saw an article like study shows that men who do dishes and household chores get more sex. And I'm like, what study was that?
I heard it was the less they do. They don't want you to do the dishes. They want you to like change the oil on the car.
The more you do the stereotypical masculine male tasks, you get points for that. You get points for mowing the lawn. You don't necessarily get points for dusting the mantelpiece. There's a balance.
And this isn't us just being chauvinist dicks. This is like there's science behind this?
Yeah.
Question mark? Just checking.
No, I can't remember the name of the study, but I'd read that too.
Because we know it intuitively, but I just know we're going to get email like, this is a bunch of crap, but I'm like, I've definitely seen the science behind this, and that's one of the reasons that you are here.
Funny thing, too, about that is that there's this whole, like, school of marriage counseling in Christian spheres where they're like, men, your wives don't want to sleep with you because you're not doing the dishes. So you need to come up with a foreplay plan that includes doing the dishes, and you end up engaging in all these really supplicative behaviors that just end up spinning your wheels in the snow.
That's the old joke of that, if you're being yelled at for stacking the dishwasher wrong, it's because she's not tuned on by you. She's not attracted.
Right.
Because if she was really attracted to you and really tuned on by you and you stacked the dishwasher wrong, she wouldn't say a word. She'd just restack the dishwasher and go to bed with you. See, I mean, you can still do all the really nice guy, baitery stuff around the house, helping out, whatever, as long as you the stuff in place. It's not like you do the dishes and the vagina is closed.
Closed for business.
You can still do it all. You just have to have the alpha in place. She still has to be attracted. As long as the alpha's in place, you can do what you want with the beta.
So how do we create these leadership moments that generate that attraction, that alpha, so that we can continue on our merry beta way?
Okay. It's almost like the wife needs to have met a certain quota of moments during any one given week where she feels like you're leading and she's attracted by that. And if you have met this quota, all is well. She's happy. She's agreeable. She gets along with you great. Everything is fine. But if you don't create them, then she's kind of forced to create them herself by fitness testing you to see if you can actually act like a leader. Basically, the things that I count as leadership moments, pretty much there's three things. One, when you create a default choice as something to do. Second, you're making some kind of decision for her. Or the third one is when you're actually asking her to do something for you. So in terms of like creating a default choice for something to do, this is as simple as saying, let's go to the beach on Saturday. Which sounds really, really banal, nothing to it. It's not like some giant woman-hating command. 99% of the time, she's going to go, okay. And then on Saturday, you go to the beach and everyone has a good time. And that's all it is because you've created this default choice of something to do. So if she wanted to do something else, she would have to come up with a reason to beach offer and then come up with something that she wanted to do, which is a lot of work. It's just much easier to go with the path of least resistance and just go with this default choice that was offered in front of you. But by doing it, you've just created yourself as the one in charge, that you've created this frame. What happened on Saturday was what you wanted to happen on Saturday. She fell into your frame. She just went along with it. And then she feels like, hey, we're doing something. I mean, it's really, really just as simple as these things. Let's get Chinese food and watch something on Netflix. Okay, this is what we're doing. Well, let's go to the grocery store, but, we should hit Panera for lunch first. As long as she's going along with it, everything is smooth. So it just creates that default course of action where she is becoming the follower. She's going along with you. And this is even something that doesn't even happen in romantic relationships. Often you see in friendships, there's usually one person that's the leader and one person that's the follower. It's no different than if it was two guy friends and one saying, let's go watch baseball. And the other one going, okay. The one that's setting the standard of the direction is the one that's in charge.
Right. So this is, instead of sending down rockets and orders from the top down, this creates your default course of action. So in other words, it's not you being bossy. It's you just gently guiding the path. And that's enough of a leadership role.
Yeah. If you're doing it consistently, you're just creating something to do, a direction to go. It's no different than having some sort of well-planned date. A woman is far more likely to go on a date when you have a plan.
Just to be clear, how important is the outcome? Because it seems almost like it doesn't really matter. You go to the beach and it's raining. She's not going to be like, you're such an idiot. The fact that you actually led is what counts.
Yeah, absolutely. See, and it doesn't even necessarily have to end up with where you were choosing. If there was something else that you want to do, you can go do that sometimes. I mean, it really doesn't matter. You're going to get to know your wife well, or long-term relationship, whatever. You're going to know what she likes. So you can always think in your head, 50% of the time, I'm going to say, let's go do something I know that I like more than she does. And 50% of the time, you can say, let's go do the thing that she likes more than you do. But you're still setting that frame of you're the one leading the relationship, and she's falling into that frame, which makes you the more dominant one in the relationship, and she just gets to be the more submissive one and follow along with it. But it's just so light. It's not like you're forcing her into the car with at gunpoint. We need to go to the beach. Now move. It's very.
That's what I've been doing wrong.
It works good at first.
So far, so good, but I can see where it would head downhill. It makes sense. And you also talk about making decisions for her. And this, again, a lot of people are going to be like, what a bunch of jerks. But it's not really that harsh. For example, your example you gave here, Nick sort of touched on earlier, was we can have leftover chicken and make soup, or I can go to the store and get fish. And it's like, do the fish, whatever looks good at the store is fine, as opposed to, I don't give a crap.
Exactly. See, over and over again, I come across so many guys and husbands that I've talked to, and it's like their wife or girlfriend literally walks up to them and asks them to make a choice. That example of use the leftover chicken to make soup or go get fish, that is word for word something that happened in my house like 2 weeks ago. And it's just my wife throwing me this softball pitch that I can just bat out of the park by making a decision.
And it's stupidly easy. Like, there's no turkey hooks here. It's just lean in one direction or lean in the other direction.
Any decision you make is the absolute right decision. It's just not making a decision is the wrong decision.
Right.
Because I don't care what we eat, and she doesn't care either. She's just lobbing me the softball for me to make a decision to act like the leader so she feels fine.
And the problem comes, like Nick, like you said before, you just thought, this is stupid and a dumb question, and why are you wasting my time with it? And that was how you failed that test.
It's totally a thing I get from my dad, because my dad he's a Boston iron worker. He's retired now. But after he's worked 12 hours tying iron in sub-zero temperatures, he does not even want to spend 3 seconds picking out what he wants for dinner. He just doesn't have it left in him at the end of the day. While I don't do that, I do have, I don't care what we eat. Just pick something. I think about it. When you put it in the context of, like you say, you're just being thrown this total softball right over the plate. Make a decision, just pick something. You guys talk about it in terms of creating these moments. I don't think that you create these moments. I think that they just happen anyway. What's important is how you meet them at the time when they come. The moment is when she asks you what you want for dinner. That's totally out of your control. But what's not out of your control is how you respond to that moment, and whether or not you leverage that moment to create the type of momentum that you're talking about, which is a long-term, day-to-day sort of thing. And like you say, the big decisions are, where do we buy a house? How many kids do we have? Could probably count all of them on one hand. Whereas all of these little decisions, the ones that really start to build these points in terms of the relationship happiness, and, the other thing, bringing the excitement in by going, let's go to the beach. If she's coming to you going, can we go to the beach? You're kind of already under the gun there, because she's coming to you trying to move things forward rather than you stepping up and making decisions.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And one of the other things you talked about, or that we discussed really briefly before, is asking her to do something for you. This is also simple as hell, which is great. This is like a running theme. This is all really easy. We just need to be cognizant of it and actually do it. Yep. Asking her to do something for you. And examples we have, hey, roasted chicken for dinner. We haven't done that in a while. Or I need a couple new shirts. Or can you take this to the post office? Why is that important?
Often she's even looking for ways to fall into that role where she's actually doing something for you, where she can express how her interest in you, her love for you, just a way to be supportive. As long as she sees you as some sort of attractive leader, she's happy to go along with it. So when you're asking her to do something for you, which is, again, it's a reasonable task, you're asking in a reasonable tone of voice, it's not some sort of crazy bullying thing. If you're asking her to do something that she finds basically fun, reasonable, why wouldn't she do it? And she can get a lot of enjoyment from actually doing it. And I use the one for asking for something specific for dinner with a lot of guys. This is the whole thing of, like, women hate trying to decide what's for dinner. It's almost becoming a running gag now with guys I'm teaching this stuff to, because I say, okay, I want you at some point early in the day, 10 or 11 or whatever, to say, I want something specific for dinner that you know the ingredients are not in the house. Like if you're saying, we haven't done roast chicken for a while, I want that. You got to know there's not a chicken in the fridge. She's got to go to the grocery store, buy the chicken, come back, and then make it.
Or she flips it around on you and is like, go kill a chicken and bring it home.
It never happens. What happens is these guys come back week after week and keep saying, you won't believe it, but she cooked roast chicken. Like she literally had to make a 2-hour detour out of her day to go buy it, come back, cook it. I'm running at about 80% success rate for it happening the day he asks, and the other 20% he gets the next day.
I'm excited for how much some people are going to hate this episode already.
For whatever reason, it's less work. So on some sort of mental level, for her to go to the store, come back and do it, then have to think it out for yourself. And she's got to follow along and do it. Like I say, I'm running at 80% success the first day and the other 20% happen the next day. Like it was something like, Johnny had a doctor's appointment, had to do that. But that's a great idea. I'll do that tomorrow.
But it not happening is that like never?
I haven't had a guy strike out on it yet. Not one of the coaching clients I've had. Not one has had a strikeout on it.
And I love it because one of the things that I'm really into is the idea that people think that changing your life or changing your relationship or whatever, that it's these big grand gestures, and it's not. It's how you live your life on a day-to-day basis. You cultivate habits, you create them, you follow through on them, you stick to them, and in a year, you're a whole new person. And I think that the gym analogy is actually really strong, because if you go to the gym once, you look at yourself and you go, oh, look, I'm a little pumped up, and then it's it. But if you do it 3 or 4 times a week for a year, which Jordan has seen my pictures.
Yes, which she's fond of showing me. It's kind of ridiculous.
You have to think of this in context of you have the other stuff in your life that's creating the structural attraction working. You have a decent career where you're making reasonable money. You basically work out and in decent shape. You have some sort of a house or whatever that is basically livable. You have that in place, and then you add just creating some real basic leadership moments. Let's go do this. It's so low key. Most women are not going to suddenly wake up and realize, oh my God, he's asking me to do things. The beast keeps saying, let's go to the beach. He has these well-planned dates. When was the brutality stopped? It's so light. Most leadership is just really, really light. It's just charting direction. And you have to understand too, if she's your wife, she's already by default interested in you.
Right.
I mean, and she's committed. She has sunk costs in the relationship. She wants this to work. In a sense, the easiest person in the world to actually game and, get into a sexual encounter is your wife when you're married. Because it really is. She's basically already committed to the relationship.
Signed off on it.
Well, I mean, one of the things that they teach in Art of Charm is if you got a girl's number, she's into you. They're not running around giving out numbers to guys that don't like them. If she married you, she's into you.
Sometimes women do give their number to guys just to get rid of them, but generally that's acceptable. Like, you should always assume at least, and definitely if you're married, unless you ordered your wife off of the internet, and if you did, then maybe there's some exceptions here. But yes, you can make most of this happen with relative ease. But again, consistency seems to be the key, not wake up one morning, turn into Kim Jong-il, and then decide that's going to fix your marriage.
Exactly. You have to look back too. Usually when the woman's married you, she usually has some sort of attraction to you on just a straight up genetic level. You know how it is. You can meet a girl and everybody in the room can say that girl is an 8. But then you look at her and it's like, there's just something about her. She seems like a 9 to me. That can just be on a genetic level that somehow this particular person really attracts you and interests you. So hopefully when you got married, she had that for you. So if you have some sort of baseline genetic compatibility that creates some attraction, attracted by what you were doing, just basically being into you, all those sunk costs in the relationship. If there's anybody in the world she wants to be attracted to, it's her husband. That's just the path of least resistance, is to be attracted to you. You actually have to work hard to create the situation where she's not attracted to you. This is why these relationships have these slow declines. The whole time she's trying to be attracted and wants to be attracted and forces herself to do things and, makes it have sex when she doesn't particularly feel like it on any one particular day because she wants it to work. I mean, the relationship gets bad because you've worked at it, that you've let it there. So the same way you can lead it down, you can lead it up and take it to a better place. It's just being that consistent guy, just adding up those little plus ones here, there, and everywhere.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Ethel K. MarriedManSexLife.com. And thanks so much for coming on the show.
You're welcome.
I believe in taking care of myself, in a balanced diet, and a rigorous exercise routine.
Hey guys, I'm here with my friends Chris and Greg from the Road to Ripped podcast, and we're going to talk a little bit more about how to build that Hollywood physique. So coming from Michigan, you know, everybody there's vitamin D deficient. That's like one of the newest sort of things creeping into people's consciousness is vitamin D deficiency. So when I came here, I realized I was working inside a lot anyway, and so I started taking 5,000 IU of vitamin D every morning. I think you guys might have actually told me to do that. And it actually helped a lot of my health markers when I went and got blood work recently. So, I mean, what is it with vitamin D? Why is it important? And how come you can't just go out and get some sun, you know, and come back and have enough?
Well, you know what? You can actually go out and get some sun.
That's the whole idea, right?
And have enough. But, I mean, a lot of people don't have that luxury because,
Sure.
you know, it's the winter time. You know, they don't live in L.A., for example.
Sure.
And they're not getting any – I mean, sunlight is the best way to absorb it. But, like, if you can't do that, then supplementation with vitamin D3 is great. And actually, a lot of the advice you hear, like a lot of the governmental recommendations on adequate amounts of vitamin D is, like, ridiculously low.
Yeah.
You want at least, like, 2,000 IUs per day.
Yeah, I looked at the back of my multivitamin, and it was like, you're getting 200%. Then I looked at the back of my vitamin D, and it's like, you're getting 3,085%.
Yeah, that's more or less what you want.
Yeah.
But, you know, a lot of bad things happen when vitamin D is low. And you see all these people taking all these different supplements, and most of what they take, they don't even need and not even helping them. Mm-hmm. But the one that you really want to stress is vitamin D if you're not getting sunlight.
Sure.
Because a lot of things happen when you have low vitamin D levels. For one, testosterone goes down.
Yeah.
So when you bring your vitamin D levels up, you know, you'll have a better sex drive. You know, you find you're building more muscle more easily in the gym or staying leaner. And it also has a profound influence on strength and power. It's just one of those. It's one of those vitamins that is just vitally important, and it's very easy not to get it. And I mean, even like having low vitamin D's is actually correlated with a lot of some diseases, like
Sure.
in Canada, because vitamin D levels
Rickets.
are so low. Yeah, I mean, we got
We laugh, but people actually still get that. Sorry if you have rickets and you're listening right now.
but like certain illnesses in you know North America are very common just because of the low vitamin D levels,
Yeah.
like MS, for example. So it's definitely, you know, can't stress it enough. And I think just the testosterone part alone is more or less a reason to take it.
Especially because it's like $8 for a 6-month supply of what the amount that you actually need, and it's really hard to OD. You'd have to take like 10 pills a day to have any problems with it. For more from Greg and Chris, go to roadtoripped.com or find them podcast in iTunes at Road to Ripped. All right, guys, solid show as usual, even if I do say so myself. Show feedback and guest suggestions, Jordan H. at theartofcharm.com. Bootcamp details also at theartofcharm.com. That's where you can find links to us on Twitter, Facebook, and other social media. And if you guys buy something from a guest on the show, please do it through the podcast website. It helps support the show. And if you can't find something, email us and we'll hook it up. Now, you guys can help us even if you don't buy anything. Subscribe within iTunes, give us a 5-star rating, and write something nice. We'll love you forever. Just go to itunes.com/theartofcharm, and it'll take you right there. Now, when you write us a review, it not only makes us feel proud, but it helps keep us in the ranks so other people who can use this information can find the show more easily to get the credible advice that they need. It's also the best way to support the show other than purchasing products or training from us. So tell your friends, because the greatest compliment you can give us is a referral to someone else, either in person or shared on the web. Now have a great week, go out there and get social, and leave everything better than you found it.